So Michelle Ganz is the archives director for the Dominican Sisters of Peace. She has previously worked in academic, museum, corporate, and private archives, and she has spoken about disability, accessibility, and inclusion for most of her career, and works to support others who speak on the topic. Michelle has been a great mentor for over 15 years, working to help first-generation graduates, BIPOC, disabled, and queer people navigate the professional world. She is also the editor of a forthcoming Bloomsbury book, A Practical Guide to Trauma-Informed Archival Practice, Best Practices and Case Studies, out in February 2026, which is very exciting. Thank you so much for joining us today, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so glad to be here. I'm glad to see so many people have joined us here, and I'm gonna close. So let me do a little housekeeping here. All right. So, can everybody hear me okay? I hope so. In case you don't know, there are captions available if you hover at the bottom of the screen. Right about at the middle, there's a little thing that says CC. Click on that and you can turn on captions and they show up at the bottom of your screen. Okay, so as Emma said, I am Michelle Ganz. I am Director of Archives for Dominican Sisters of Peace here in Columbus, Ohio. And I have been a mentor for about a lot of years. And I have been doing career counseling for pretty much that whole time. So I am a first generation professional, first generation born in this country, first generation for a lot of things in my family, which meant that I didn't have the advantage of having a lot of this sort of professional stuff um, um, modeled for me. So what I try to do in the mentoring that I do is to ensure that everybody knows all the stuff that I didn't know when I first started, and and sort of give everyone an opportunity to ask questions that, sometimes we don't feel comfortable asking. And that is one thing I wanted to say is that this is a safe space. I am a safe person to talk to. There is no question too silly. There is no question that I will not feel comfortable answering. And if you do not feel comfortable asking your questions in any of the various options that we have here, I am always available via email. You're gonna get that at the end. You can reach out to me anytime, and I'm happy to answer questions, whatever you got. So let's sort of jump into what we want to talk about here. And the first thing that I really want to let you guys know is that as SNAP members, as SAA members, you have a lot of resources available to you as you begin your job search. So we have the Career Counseling Center, and the Career Center in general, which has job postings. You can post your resume there. It's got all these real great tools to sort of help you create a profile and look for a job through SAA. The great thing about the Career Center is that you have to have a salary range in order to be allowed to post there. So everything has a salary range. Nowadays, if it doesn't have a salary range, that is a warning sign that you should not apply for that job. It means they're going to tragically underpay you, and at this stage, no one should be underpaid. We all, I think, are a little bit underpaid, but we really want to make sure that it's not criminally so. So that's sort of a great place to sort of start your search. And then through SAA, you also have the option of joining a few different mentoring sort of relationships. So we've got the Career Counseling Center, which is sort of your first stop for getting help on the job search. We have 13, 14. There's a bunch of us who are all mentors. You can sign up through the SAA career counseling website, and we use appointment, so you can actually set up an appointment for any counselor that you want to talk to. We are all available different times. I'm available during work hours, so Monday through Friday. I think I'm available 9 to something or another. But we're all available at a variety of times, and we all come from different sectors, from different stages of our career. And I always recommend that you talk to more than one of us because we all have a different perspective. And that's the sort of thing about the advice that you get from us is that you take what feels good, you let go of things that don't feel good. Not everything's right for everybody, and if you take everybody's advice all at the same time, you end up with a resume like I had that had these weird boxes like with outlines on them, and it was a hot mess. So don't apply everybody's advice all at once. But please, take advice from a lot of different people because, like I said, we have a lot of different perspective, and depending on the sector you want to go into, we can offer you more specific advice towards your career goals. We can all offer you though really great advice on sort of how to start this job search. Um, we meet for about an hour. You can do mock interviews. We can help you with your CV, with your cover letters, with sort of anything you need sort of help with. Then SAA has a more traditional mentoring program where you're matched with someone based on a number of different things that you choose. So it could be regional, it could be the type of archive you want to go into, it could be your personal identity, whatever it happens to be. And then they get match you for a 6 month relationship. We meet once a month. We give you sort of a guidebook on sort of what to expect from mentors, what we expect from you as mentees, and sort of how the program works. And the idea with this is that we build a longer relationship and talk about sort of longer issues, things that require multiple discussions, career goals, if you're switching careers, if you're sort of changing from, let's say you're in academia now and you want to go into corporate, sort of how do you manage that transition and what does that look like, that sort of thing. You can join the program at any stage of your career. I really recommend people who are mid-career take advantage of this sort of opportunity. It gives us a chance to talk about things that maybe you don't get to in a smaller shop. So if you're an independent archivist, sometimes you just need somebody else to talk to. If you don't have archivists in your general vicinity, you could sort of turn to and ask questions. Um, I hope all this makes sense, and I apologize if I am talking too fast. I talk really fast, so I'm gonna try to slow down. Okay, so SAA is sort of your number one place to go to for job help and sort of career help in general. I recommend you join as many sections as you feel comfortable doing. You can set up your emails so that you get them from the listserv. You get them as they come in, as a daily digest, as a weekly digest, so you could sort of tailor your level of engagement. But join sections then seem interesting. The one that I recommend everybody join is the religious archive section because they do amazing programming. They do lunches and learns. They bring in these really great experts to talk to us for free for an hour about a variety of topics from digitization and accessioning to processing and conservation. A lot of sections do programming, so look at ones that either personally interest you or like I said, like the religious archive section that just does a lot of programming, and then make sure you're on the announcements list. You're going to see job postings there, you're going to see programming opportunities there, you're going to see professional development opportunities there. As students, take advantage of the professional development that you can do at the discounted rate that students get. So to join SAA is a lot cheaper as a student. To go to the annual meeting is a lot cheaper. Workshops, everything you guys get a discount on. So take advantage of those sort of things. And take advantage of the opportunity to do things like present at SAA. There is a spreadsheet right now online where you can see different programs or different proposals that people are thinking about for 2026. And you can sign up to join one of them. You don't have to have a certain level of experience to share what you know. Um, those are great opportunities to get some really awesome things on your CV that again you could participate at a much cheaper level, and you also get an opportunity to apply for scholarships for like travel and things like that. So take advantage of what you can do as a student and recognize that you can still build a really great solid career without taking advantage of these things because they do require time, and sometimes money depending on what you're trying to do. And so SAA is working on providing more opportunities for people to participate at sort of less costly levels, because I think we can all agree that the annual meeting is awesome, but it is kind of prohibitively expensive. Anaheim was breathtakingly expensive. I'm delighted we're going to be in New Orleans next year. It's going to be cheaper, and starting 2027 they are renegotiating contracts, so we're going to try to go to cheaper places like, Cleveland, which is way cheaper than Anaheim was. um okay, so take advantage of the things that you can do to sort of build your professional career. The thing is that once you are in school, everything you do counts as professional experience. So start noting these things down on things like your CV. And that is an excellent segue into sort of the documents that you need to build for your job search. So you need a CV and you need a cover letter template. Now, there are a lot of people who are going to tell you that you're going to want to rebuild your CV or your resume and your cover letter from scratch every time you apply. Some people really enjoy that. To me, that's a lot of work, and it's a lot of anxiety. Um, so I advocate that we sort of build a CV, because here's the thing. All the jobs we're applying for are basically the same. They're archival jobs. So, they're all asking for the same sort of competencies, the same sort of skills, and the same sort of experiences. So if you build a CV that is a comprehensive look at everything that you have done as a professional, you can submit that whenever they don't say, I need a CV or I need a resume. If they say they need a resume, we sort of cherry pick a 2-page version of your CV. If your CV is only 2 pages, then you submit that. Now, I hope that makes sense. And so the idea here is that we're gonna start putting everything on your CV now. We're gonna create sections that have your education, which is the least important thing on your CV. The idea that you would apply for an archival job without a master's degree, if that's what they need, is a little silly. So I always recommend that we sort of put our education at the bottom of our CV and we put our experiences at the top, because we want to really highlight all of the things that make us uniquely us. And all of our experiences give us a different perspective on how we do archival work. So segue, we go to school to learn the foundational concepts for why we become, or for why we do the things that we do as archivists. But sort of the nitty gritty of what we do and how we do it is really on the job kind of training, because everybody does things a little bit differently based on the kind of organization it is and all of the policies and procedures they have around their archives. So all of your experiences allow you to build your unique perspective on archives, and that's what we want to highlight. So we create a section for all your experiences that include numbers. I have processed 13 collections at this internship. I processed one collection, created a finding aid. We link to the finding aid if it's possible. So basically, we give as much information as possible about how much we have done of things. I created metadata for 1,500 photographs. This tells me as a hiring manager that this person has done this enough, then if I bring them in, they will understand how my unique process works and be able to work with what we've got quickly and efficiently. Um, we want to create a section for our skills. Here are the things that I know how to do, and let me explain to you how good I am at these things. So we have familiar, proficient, and expert. Familiar means I have heard the words past perfect. I know that it is a software system designed mostly for museums, but a lot of smaller archives use it because it is fairly inexpensive and it's very non-technical, so it's very user-friendly. I have a sister who is my assistant. She can use past perfect because she doesn't need to know mark coding or any of the technical mumbo jumbo that we often use. And congratulations, you are all now familiar with past perfect, and you put that on your CV. Any programs that we use as archives that you have heard about, you put on there as I am familiar with. Proficient means I have done a demo version. I've watched some demonstrations done. I've seen how this program works. Expert means I've used it more than 3 times. If you are not sure if you are proficient or an expert, you are an expert. None of these systems are so convoluted or complicated that you can't figure it out if you've at least heard about it, and with a little bit of Googling. So, this is the only place I will ever recommend that you sort of fudge things a little bit is on your level of expertise. We are all capable of becoming experts fairly quickly on all of these programs. So that's sort of something you can do as a student and as a new professional that is free. You can go online. All of these programs have demos you can watch from their website, have demo versions you can download and install on your computer, play with a little bit. Get yourself familiar with as many of sort of the standard sort of things we use. So that's like Omeka, Content DM, Preservica. A really good way to sort of find what all the sort of systems that we use are right now is to go to the annual meeting website and look at who the sponsors were. So all of the big companies sponsor SAA annual meeting. Go to their website and become familiar with the programs that we all use because we all get discounts when we go to the annual meeting and meet them. The other thing that you want to put on there are sort of skills like do you have rare book handling? Do you know how to do mark cataloging? If you do know how to do mark cataloging, do you know how to use any of those Library of Congress OCLC type products like ClassWeb, things like that? You want to list all of those. The only thing I recommend people not put on their CV is things like Google Suite, Microsoft Office, things like that, unless you know how to do those magical things with Excel that I wish I had paid more attention to in grad school. If you know how to do the string queries, if you know how to do sort of high level stuff in Excel, put that on there. Otherwise, the assumption is that we all know how to open a Word document and how to send an email in Outlook. Okay, so the idea with the CV here is that it's a living document, that as you do things, you add things to them. So you're going to have a professional development section that's going to list the workshops and the webinars and the things that you're attending. There are a lot of great programs out there that don't cost money. There are a lot of programs out there that cost money, and there's a lot of programs out there that cost a lot of money and are not worth the money. So be real sort of particular about, the things that you're going to do and the way you're going to spend your time. Look at who's offering it, look at, sort of what you get out of the program. So if I'm going to pay $100 for a workshop, I want to get something that I can download and look at again later. I want to get 2 or 3 hours with the instructor. I want to have access to the instructor afterwards. That's what I want. For you, it may be more that you just want access to the recording, and that's enough for you. Sort of gauge what works for you, and then proceed accordingly. Like I said, there's a lot of options at a variety of price points here. There are a lot of different certifications that are out there, again, at a variety of price points. if you are just starting out in the field, the one that I would sort of recommend without reservation is getting the CA. The Academy of Certified Archivists is a really great way to show hiring managers who don't have a real good understanding of archives that you are a certified archivist by a third party who, has standards and metrics, and we use psychometricians, and it's a very above the board transparent process. It costs very little to take the exam. It's 100 questions, multiple choice. Each exam is only graded on that class. So you're not judged based on previous year's scores or anything like that. The questions are reviewed regularly. We have a item bank that we pull questions from. It's a really interesting process. But the great thing is that they also break everything down into knowledge statements and domains. So it makes it really, really easy to study for the exam. And I always tell people, if you're just out of school, it's the perfect time to take it because it tests for the ideal scenario, sort of the scenario that we learn in school. And then the further out from school you get, you realize that there's the way we learn things in school and the way things actually happen in the real world. And that's where the exam gets a little tougher, because sometimes one of the answers will be the real world scenario, but they're looking for the textbook answer. So, the nice thing is that there's study groups. There's always different ways to study for the exam. It's given once a year. I think costs $100 to take the exam, and then once you pass, you pay your dues. You pay your dues annually, and then every 4 or 5 years, you recertify through points that you get through a variety of different ways, that basically show that you participate in the profession. You do writing, you serve on committees, you go to conferences, you participate in conferences. There's a lot of different ways to do it, and like I tell people, ACA is in the business of certifying people, so they try to make it as easy as possible to help you get recertified. Going to workshops and webinars is another way to get points. So always recommended. There are other certifications that cost a little bit more, that if you're not sure if you need it or not, maybe wait and see if your employer will pay for you to get the certification. My first employer actually paid for me to get my CA, and I have been very fortunate that my employer pays for me to do some professional development. Um, okay, so in the interest of time, moving on here, let's talk about cover letters for a minute. So I am a proponent of a combination of narrative, bullet points, and narrative. And cover letters are highly subjective and they are highly personal. So this is what I like. If you don't like it, feel free to disregard this. But the method that I use is allows us to do a little bit of a writing sample. Here's what I sound like on paper. Yes, I understand how to write a professional email or write a professional letter. And I understand how to use punctuation. The bullet pointed list is a one-to-one comparison of the required and preferred qualifications in the job posting. And the reason I recommend this is sometimes 2 people apply for the job, sometimes 200 people apply for the job. If 200 people apply for the job and the poor person who's been looking at these all day has looked at 40 different 2-page letters, and you've got this nice list that just sort of pops out of the middle of the page, it makes their life easier. And I have no scientific evidence on this, but I am convinced that it helps you get that, at least that first interview, because it's just easier for them to see that you have the qualifications. The things you don't need to address are, you need a master's degree. Obviously, you have a master's degree. Sort of the generic ones, you have good communication skills. Leave those off. Focus on the ones that are like, you need to have experience using past perfect. And then you say, I have 3 years of experience using past perfect. Whatever language they use, you use. If they say you need to have experience working with patrons, I have 3 years of experience working with patrons. You sort of, it's that thing that we learned in middle school. You use the question in the answer that we're writing in the essay. That's exactly what we want to do here. And the idea is that if AI is looking at these things, you're going to have the right keywords that let it pick up on it that will hopefully allow an actual person to look at your stuff. If it's an actual person right away, which usually it is, again, you're going to hit those keywords and it's a little bit of sort of that psychological thing of you're already using the language of the organization that you were trying to join. Um, when I got the job I have now, one of the things they told me that they really loved about my answers is I never said I. I always said, we will work together to make the archive do this, that, and the other thing. We will work to ensure that people are sending things to the archive, but I always used inclusive language. And I always feel like that is sort of what we're trying to do convey in the interview is then we understand that an archive is an essential part of many organizations, but it's also a financial black hole. You pour money into it, but money doesn't come out. So the way money comes out of the archive is in the time we save other people. So I always tell people, I spent an hour and a half researching this so that the administrator of this department could continue doing her work until I found the answer. And I just handed her the thing that she needed to fill in the report that she was doing, saving her an hour and a half of time. So again, when we're sort of writing our documents, we sort of want to think about that sort of inclusive language. You don't ever want to write in your cover letter, I'm going to come in and change everything about how your archive works. Archives and libraries are their favorite thing to say is, but this is the way we've always done things. And part of what we do as archivists is sort of slowly shift that. But sometimes you're shifting, an entire organization that's been around for a while. So the idea is that we work as part of the organization. You want to convey that in your cover letter as a way to show, I am a team player. It sets the right tone to sort of get your foot in the door to get that interview. Once you get the interview, there are all sort of things that we can then do to help you move to the next phase. And one of the things that I have provided you guys are 2 documents. It is a question and answer document that's sort of the standard questions that always gets asked in interviews and the ones that are the most often answered incorrectly, and a list of questions that you need to ask them. Let's go for the first one first. So there are a set of questions that sort of everybody gets asked. Why do you want this job? Tell us a little bit about yourself. These sort of standard feeling you out questions. When they ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself. They do not need to know that your favorite color is green and that you grew up in Englewood, Ohio, and that, your hair is curly. They need to know why you became an archivist. The document that I've created sort of lays out these standard questions and then my answers. And like I said, this is all take what feels good, leave what doesn't. I have applied for hundreds of jobs and gotten interviews in a few of them and gotten offers for a few more, but I've been a mentor for a lot of years and people have found these to be helpful. The idea here is that we want you thinking about sort of why you want to be part of the organization. I always recommend that you write things down. It is great if you show up in an interview and have a notebook with some stuff written down, or if you're going to use your phone, tell them, "Hey, I've got some notes on my phone, I'm going to be looking at." Sort of have answers kind of at the ready. The idea is that we're not going to read off of a page, but you want to make sure that you remember to say a few things. We all get nervous in interviews. It's a heightened anxiety sort of situation, and it's good to have notes. It's good to show you're prepared. The thing I always like to remind people about archives is we don't need to have everything in our heads. We just need to remember where to go find it, right? Writing things down is how we remember where to go find things. So it's perfectly acceptable to write some answers down, but like I said, don't read off the page. A lot of the other questions that are on there are sort of the gotcha questions. They're questions that are asking you to tell them about something bad. Tell us about a scenario where a program didn't go the way you wanted it to. You do not want to answer this question with a negative, but you have no choice but to answer this question with a negative. So the idea is you go, okay, here's the terrible thing that happened. Here's what we did to make the thing go. Here's what I learned in the end. And from now on, I know not to do this, and I always do this instead. You end those negative questions on a positive. The bad thing happened, I learned the thing, and now we do this awesome thing instead. And you always want to try to answer questions in the positive. My therapist tells me that our brains are like Alexas. They're always listening. So if you say bad things about yourself, eventually your brain is going to believe it. So let's say nice things about ourselves. And they're always going to ask you these negative questions because that's part of the job. Things don't go the way we want them to. Things don't happen the way we want them to. There's the perfect scenario. There's the best practices. There's ethics. And there's what we actually have to do to get the job done. And one thing I want to remind you guys as new professionals, yes, it is important to stand up for what we believe in, but it's also important to have a place to live and have food. And if it comes down to I need to stand up for my morals and ethics, or I'm going to get fired from my job, then you know what? You do the thing. I've been asked to do unethical things in the past, and I've sent an email to my boss saying, you are asking me to do this thing. I have objected accordingly. Let the record show. I don't think this is a good idea. And then I do the thing. And that's part of what we want to sort of convey in our materials as we apply for jobs is, I understand that there's the way archives work and that there's the way we would like archives to work, and then there's the way archives actually work. And right now, the world's kind of a dumpster fire. I know people who've had to drop off of committees because it included the word DEI in it. Um, the last SAA president had to step down because her organization said, no, we don't like the things your organization is doing. And you know what? She said, I really like my job, and resigned from SAA president. But I say this because you have to decide how much you want to share in your cover letters about sort of your feelings on DEI, inclusivity, and sort of how much you share about yourself. So I am deaf, I am mixed race, I have ADHD, I have anxiety. I don't tell people that right away. I don't tell them that in the cover letter. I don't even tell them that I'm deaf in the first interviews. Although now I have a cochlear implant, it's a little bit easier to see. But for a lot of years, I didn't tell people because as soon as I told people I was deaf, I got treated differently. And that tells us a lot about the place that we are interviewing with and the places that we are applying to. So when I graduated in 2007, I was like, I can live anywhere. I'm going to take the first job I get, stay there for about 4 or 5 years, and then move on to bigger and better things. I took a job in rural Tennessee. The economy exploded 3 weeks after I got the job. It took me 8 years to get out of there. It ended up being a great job, but personally, I almost died living there. It was so rural that it was dangerous for me to go places. Um, and what I learned from that is that when we are looking for jobs and when we're participating in interviews, we are interviewing them. We need to ask ourselves, can I actually live in this environment? Am I comfortable with moving? I have moved 11 times over 17 years. Every time I do, it drains my retirement account. I have to find new doctors, new grocery stores, new pharmacies, new friends. It's exhausting emotionally and physically, and it's financially catastrophic. Um, so That being said, there are some people who love to move for their jobs. I know people who only do project work because they really love moving around every couple of years. If that's life for you, there are a ton of jobs out there for you. If that is not the life for you, then you need to ask yourself, okay, where do I want to live? What is the smallest amount of money I can take? I would like to say that we all go into archives and make gorgeous amounts of money and everybody lives great. My first job paid me $28,000 a year. It took me kind of a long time to get to what we now almost consider a living wage. I am fortunate now that I actually make enough money I can pay my bills and I was able to, you know, buy things. But you need to ask yourself, how much can I pay? What sort of situation do I want to work in? When you're applying for the jobs, look at their website. Is accessibility something that's a feature on their site? Right now, you can put a little widget on your website for free that will do all sorts of accessibility things for your website. Do they feature the same people in all of their photos? When I worked at certain places, the one person of color that worked there was in all of the photos. For me, that was a red flag. I do not want to work someplace where that's how they operate. Um, when you're in the interviews, you need to say, are they asking me questions that are inappropriate? Are they reacting strangely to the responses I give? Um, Example, I was in an interview, someone asked me about what sort of do you want to do to build out the archive? And I said, well, I want to make sure that all voices are heard, so I really want to look at marginalized communities like the trans community. And the faces of the people that I was in, I was like, oh, and shockingly, they didn't invite me back for another interview, but quite frankly, if they had, I would not have gone because that's not the kind of place I want to work at. Again, I had the privilege at that moment of being picky and choosy. Um, Sometimes we don't get to be. When that happens, it is okay to take a job and continue looking for another job. There's this idea that our grandparents had where you get a job and you stay there for 5 years or however many years. That's not a thing anymore. I hate to say it, but if we get hit by a bus tomorrow, they're going to be very sad for a couple of days, and then they're going to clear out our desk about a week later, and then they're going to hire somebody else. We cannot give our entire lives to our jobs. So make sure that the job that you are taking, is one that's going to be tolerable, at least fulfilling, hopefully. Recognize that if you're not happy, you can move on. I actually had someone at my job take the offer, and then she called us 2 days later, was like, I got a better offer, I'm going somewhere else, sorry. I was deeply hurt, but you know what, the other job she took was the one that was right for her. We don't know anybody anything. Okay, so let's circle back to those documents again. Questions to ask them. The questions that you ask them need to help you decide if this is a place you want to work at. We spend 38 to 40 hours of our weeks with these people. Do you want to go to lunch with them every day? Do you want to see them every day? Do you want to spend most of your life talking to them? And the questions that we want to ask them are things like, how is this position evaluated? My favorite question is, what do you like about working here? I mentored someone who once told me that they went to a job interview, and when they picked him up from the airport, they started complaining about things. And they did not stop complaining the entire interview until they dropped him off. And then were shocked and surprised that he didn't take the job offer. If they complain the whole time, clearly that's not a place you want to work at. I wish that I could say that archives are all nurturing, wonderful places to work at. Academia used to be the safe place to go. It used to be the place where you could go and have a career, but there's always a little bit of politics and it could get a little toxic. Academia has gotten crazy in the last year. Funding has been cut. People are freaking out. People are getting fired. Tenure doesn't mean anything. But things are improving also. So look carefully. Use these questions. What do you like about working here? How is this position evaluated? What do you see as the biggest learning curve for this position? Ask thoughtful questions that give you thoughtful responses that help you evaluate this place and decide if it's the right position for you. And I know that it is hard when you're underemployed or unemployed to walk away from a job offer. But if a job offer is insulting or doesn't feel right, you don't have to take it. Please see my earlier comment though. If you're underemployed or unemployed, take the job and then just keep looking. Okay, so that's sort of the document. Let's take the next 10 minutes or so to sort of talk about the job search and some mental health stuff, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So when you do this job search, if you are still a student, start 6 months before you graduate. Sometimes you get the first couple of jobs you apply for. Sometimes it takes a while. In 2008, it took me 8 years. It is not like 2008. Jobs are already coming back. There was a bit of a panic at the beginning of the year. I have seen more job postings in the last 2 months than I have in the previous year put together. As we move into 2026, more jobs are going to come open. I am seeing more jobs across the board, from small academic institutions to larger corporate institutions. Everybody is figuring out where their funding is coming from. They're figuring out how they're going to move forward in this exciting new landscape. And they're all moving on with how archives are going to continue to function. There are jobs out there. But you can get really bogged down in this search. It can become consuming. I know that towards the end of my job search, I was like, I'm going back to working in restaurants. I don't care. I can't do this anymore. But you have to pace yourself. So what I usually recommend that people do is that they collect job postings. Archives Gig, SAA Career Center, LinkedIn, Indeed, all of these different places. You can set up alerts where they will email you. Indeed is actually how I got the last 3 of my jobs. Craziness. And they will send you an email that you tell them, I want a job that says archivist, and here's where I want to work. Give me everything in 50 miles, and it will send you an email once a day or once a week. You collect all of these job postings for the one day that you are going to apply for jobs. For me, that was Sunday. The rule for me is I got up Sunday morning, I made a cup of tea, and then I sat down in front of my computer. I wasn't allowed to turn on the TV, I wasn't allowed to go to brunch, and I was certainly not allowed to go outside and play until I applied for at least 2 jobs. That's what worked for me. Pick something that works for you. But the idea here is that the only time you apply for a job, as soon as you see the posting, is if it says it closes today at 5 o'clock. Drop everything and apply for it. Otherwise, collate them all together. Pick a day that you're going to do this. You're going to have your CV. You're going to go to the Career Center. Someone's going to take a look at it. You're going to reach out to me. I'm going to take a look at it. You're going to feel good about it. You're going to have your cover letter template. You're going to fill in the things. It'll take you about 10 or 15 minutes to apply for a job. When you apply with those documents, you're going to convert them into PDFs, but you're going to have a Word version available, because some of the systems are going to say, I need you to type in all of the things on the CV that you're then going to attach at the end of this process. If you have it in a Word document, you can copy and paste it. The whole thing goes much faster. It also ensures that you don't have typographical errors, because there's nothing worse than misspelling your own name. Speaking of which, check your documents. If you build it in Google Documents, download it, look at it in Word. I once had a document that I used my friends to build it in Google. They built it in Word. There was a header that I couldn't see that had their information. So when I submitted it, it said my friend's information and then mine underneath it. And the very nice person who caught it emailed me, let me know, told me to fix it, and let me apply anyway. They were so nice. check your documents in a variety of formats, then convert it to a PDF so nothing weird happens to it once it gets on the other end. Um, Okay, so back to the job search. So the other thing you're going to want to do is have a folder on whatever thing you use for your email, for your documents. You apply for the thing, you put it in the folder, and then I know this is terrible to say, you never think about it again. Because sometimes they'll reach out right away. Sometimes they'll reach out 2 months later. Once they reached out 8 months later, we're like, are you still interested? I had someone reach out a year later to let me know that someone else had been hired. And I was like, wow, that was a really long lag. But the point is that sometimes there is a lag depending on the organization. So, like my first job, it actually took 8 months for me to get hired because they opened the position. Administration said, oh, wait, I'm not sure we have the funding. They closed it. They said, wait a minute, we do have the funding. The new fiscal year, they reopened it, called me up, and I ended up getting the job. So there was a weird thing with funding, then crossed a fiscal year. And for those of you who don't know, the fiscal year ends in June, and the new one starts July 1st. So you'll see new postings around June, July, and then other people do the calendar year. So you'll see other postings November, December. You're going to start seeing a bunch of postings in the next month for people who are on the calendar year because they're going to hope to start the process before the holidays and then pick it up in January and new people will start in spring. Um, it's going to take time. People are jerks. They will not let you know that you did not move on. They will never let you know if you don't get the interview. But I have gone all the way to the very end and radio silence. And then I found out someone got the job because they post to a lister. I just started it. I'm like, cool, I guess I didn't get the job. Um, it's heartless, it's cruel, it's horrible, and it really takes a toll on the mental health. So, last couple of minutes here, we're going to talk about our mental health. It is very, very important that we all build tools and strategies to ensure that this process does not take a toll. Like I said, 8 years into the process for me, I was ready to walk away from depression altogether because I was so desperate. And I think that desperation came across in my materials and in my interviews because I was just like, please hire me. So I started going to therapy. If you can afford therapy, please go to therapy. It's great. Everyone can use it. Unfortunately, it also costs money. So let's talk about some things that we can do that don't cost a lot of money. The number one tool we have is self-care. The idea of self-care came out of the Black Panther movement in the 1960s. It came out of the women from the Black Panther movement because, quite frankly, they were doing all of the work. And they said, we are going to die if we keep doing this. We cannot burn the candle at both ends and continue to live our lives and hold down the jobs or go to school or do all of the things that we need to do as adults. So it is very important that we take time out of our schedules to take care of ourselves. 20 minutes a week is really all we need. I recommend you do things that are new. So my therapist said it can't be something that you always do. So wash day routines don't really count. Your everything shower, if you've been doing that since you were 14, it doesn't count. It has to be something sort of new because the idea here is that it's just focusing on you. It's something you have to pay attention to. For me, it's doing my nails. I am terrible at painting in the lines. It takes me about 40 minutes to do it, and I just have to really focus on paying attention to what I'm doing. It's 40 minutes where I'm not thinking about work, I'm not thinking about family, I'm not thinking about my house. I'm just paying attention to what I'm doing. Face masks are great for this, and I would like to point out none of these activities are gendered. In spite of what society tells us, doing your nails feels good for everybody. And there's actually a scientific reason. Apparently, in the womb, you rub your fingers against each other and against the placenta, and it's a calming effect. So, doing things that rub your cuticles and rub your fingers has a very calming effect for everybody. So, even if you just file your names and then rub lotion on them for 10 minutes, that'll work. Going for a walk. Taking your dog for a walk does not count. Going on a family walk does not count. baking something, reading something, listening to something. Audiobooks absolutely count as reading. Anyone who says otherwise is a liar. And anecdotally, when reading first happening, for books first happened, reading to yourself was considered weird and abnormal behavior. You read out loud to a group. So audiobooks are the original reading. Podcasts, whatever it is, something that allows you to focus on yourself for about 20 minutes a week. Um, my new therapist just told me that moving our bodies helps us heal from trauma. If there is any way that you can move your body, I learned walking around my block 3 times equals a mile. If I only go around once, that's fine too. Even if it's only 5 minutes, that's fine too. Even if it's only moving a small part of your body, that's fine too. The idea here is that we need to focus on ourselves as beings outside of how we contribute to society or capitalism. Um, okay, so the easiest thing that we can do for self-care is breathing. And it seems silly. I'm still bad at it, but 5 minutes of breathing in and breathing out really does make a difference. Um, I've heard it called box breathing. I've heard it called a variety of different things, but you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, and you breathe out for 4 seconds. Works great. Um, find things that work for you. There are so many tools online that are free. I have gone through probably every single app in the App Store looking for ones that are free that do awesome things. Right now, Inside Timer brings tremendous joy, and you can do a lot of stuff for it that's free. Not everything will work. Try something. If it doesn't work, that's cool. Move on to something else. Um, Okay, so in the last 5 minutes before we open this up for questions, I wanted to give you guys sort of an overview of where you can go to get help. So we started out talking about SAA. If you're an SAA member, please take advantage of the things that are available to you as part of your membership. The Services Commons mentoring program. All of the sections, all of the things available to you as part of your membership, take advantage of them. If you are not an SAA member, you can still join 1 or 2 sections for free. Join the SNAP section. You are here, please join the SNAP section. It is an awesome place to get a ton of resources. As students and new professionals, these are your peers. I have been in the field for 17 years. My experience in school is so completely different than your experience in school. It is important that you build communities now. The archives field is very small. There's 12 of us, 12,000 of us nationwide. There are 7,000 of us that are SAA members. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller. We all know each other. After 17 years, I feel like I know everybody. After 17 years, you're going to know everybody too. That starts now. And I know this is going to seem crazy, but I am an introvert. I am only extroverted in this one narrow lane. So many archivists I know are the same way. We are introverted. A lot of us have anxiety. A lot of us have ADHD. A lot of us have a lot of things. It makes us very welcoming community. So reach out to people. When I was starting out in SAI, I really would reach out to email someone and say, hey, I saw a presentation you did. I've seen you at some events. Can we chat about things? I absolutely encourage you to email people who work in sectors that you are interested in. I work in religious archives. Please email me with all the questions you have about religious archives. Actually, just email me about all the questions you have about archives. I love talking about archives. I love mentoring people. I love giving information. Not all of us do. So if you email someone and they don't respond, the rule is you get to do it one more time and then you have to stop. Some people choose not to engage. They are allowed to do so. Like I said, the mentoring program gives you a lot of opportunities to reach out to a lot of different people. If you do social media at all, Facebook has a lot of different groups that you can join. Archivist Think Tank is a really great resource, again, to make community. A lot of people go there to ask questions. There's a lot of SAA members on there. There's a lot of not SAA members on there. If you're a person of color, we here is they're on Facebook and they have a website, and I think they have a Discord server, but I haven't been able to find it because I don't really understand Discord servers. But they are an organization. You have to be a person of color. It's librarians and archivists, but it's a really, really great resource for some of the unique situations that we deal with as people of color. In an organization and in organizations and in a field that is predominantly white. We're doing better. We're up to about 18% diversity in SAA, up from around 8% when I started. We got a lot of work to do. If you are a disabled archivist or you are an ally, join the SAA Accessibility and Disability section. Again, another really great section, does a lot of really great programming. It's another great place to connect with people who have the same unique experiences you do. There are things as disabled archivists that we deal with that able-bodied people don't have to. It's not a judgment thing, it simply is. We need different tools. This is sort of a place you can get different tools. The diverse gender and sexuality section of SAA. Also a really great place to build community, find resources. All of these groups do job postings too. Reddit seems a little dodgy to me. I am old though. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm 49 years old, so Reddit to me seems a little dodgy. But for many people, it is a really great place to go to again find community, find people to talk to, find people to share with. Um, Before we stop here for questions, I just want to remind everybody that while we are all unique, our experiences are unique. We are not alone. Um, the archives community is a very caring, sharing one. I have made lifelong friends in this field. I have never been turned away from everywhere when looking for help. So please reach out to me through these different programs. And I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of a shameless plug here. I do offer one-on-one mentoring services on a paid scale. This is if you want access to me outside of business hours. So on the weekends, in the evenings, I do offer a paid service. If you go to my website, you can set up an appointment with me. If you cannot pay, please talk to me. Payment should not be a barrier to information and to help. Um, like I said, take advantage of the programs that we have at SAA. They are your number one access to a variety of different people who can really help you out. If you are not an SAA member, if you cannot afford it, reach out to me. I can help connect you with individuals who can help answer questions. And like I said, I love to answer questions. So let's open it up to questions. And honestly, there's no question that you can ask me that will offend me or upset me. I love answering the same question over and over and over again too. So, let's open up to some questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Michelle. You have such great advice, and we have a lot of really good questions coming in. Some of them kind of meet in the same category, so I'm going to try to blend them together a little bit for you. So we have a couple of people here who are looking, they're either freshly out of their MLIS or they're new into the field, making a career change from like an administrative role. How would you recommend building experience and gaining more practical hands-on experience? One mentions they found a volunteer opportunity, but would love to know if there are any other approaches that you might recommend.
Unfortunately, volunteering is the number one way to go, and I wish that I could say that we could pay everyone who walks in the door. But unfortunately, volunteering is really the best way to go. Reach out to the organization that you are interested in working for or the sector that you're interested in working in and see if there's sort of a way that you can volunteer. If you can't volunteer, shadow someone. Say, look, I know that you don't have a volunteer opportunity. Can I just sort of watch how you work for a day? If they say no, like I said earlier, reach out twice. If they don't respond, move on to something else. Here's the interesting thing about archives. The experience that we bring in from our previous lives, our allied lives works in our favor. Um, I worked in restaurants in the back of the house. I worked in warehouses. I did a lot of different things before I came to archives. The competencies that I didn't have in my professional work, I was able to backfill with the other jobs I had. So, managerial experience. I needed to have that at my current job. I had never done that before, but I managed a whole warehouse of people and a whole retail store of employees. When I got to the interview phase, I was able to include that in. We don't want to put that sort of stuff on our CVs, though. So that's the sort of information that we sort of hold on to for the interview. Unfortunately, we can't put that, we spent 10 years working in restaurants on our professional CVs. Um, the other thing you can do is get involved. So the work that I did through SAA as part of um, section leadership really helped me build a lot of skills that I use in my current work. Um, SAA is big. It can be a little intimidating. It can be a little expensive. There are so many other organizations out there, though, that are a little bit more approachable. So you've got MAC, which is Midwest Archives Conference, MARAC, which I can never remember the acronym for. There's one out west. Every state has their own one. Society of Ohio Archivists. I think it only costs like $40 for us to join for the year. And normally our annual meeting is like 50 or $60. So everything is much more cost effective, and it's easier to sort of get involved because it's fewer people. I mean, honestly, SAA is a lot of people. And sometimes when you're running for something, you're running against, 3 or 4 other people. It can be a little intimidating. When I did things for Society of Ohio Archivists, they were mostly like, would you like to volunteer to do this? And I was like, yes. And they're like, congratulations, you were elected. um it gives you the opportunity to sort of participate in a lot of different ways, and again, you use that to sort of build competency. So if you are elected as a steering committee member for one of for the snap section, and you do the social media for the snap section, you can now put on your skills section that you are proficient at being a social media manager. Archives need social media managers. I do in various jobs. I've done social media, policy writing, reference work, exhibits. You do a little bit of everything. So any place where you can pick up a little bit of a skill here and there, um, try to do that. I would like to point out that doing this sort of thing comes from a place of privilege. It requires that you have the time and the ability to do things for free. And again, I am sorry that this is how it works. I know that some organizations are doing a lot to sort of help offset that with giving people stipends for things, giving people vouchers for things, help giving them discounts on other things. So sort of look for opportunities that work for you. If you can't find those, do the webinars, do the workshops. Those are a really good way, again, to build skills. Because here's the thing, if you know how to do it conceptually, I don't need to know that you know how to take folders out of a box and put them into, a new archivally safe box. If you tell me you know how to process things, it is a given that you will understand how to do the physical part of it. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So the idea here is you can build that skill set from a variety of different ways, from physically doing the work, from getting education on the work. Apply for jobs that say they need 3 to 5 years of experience, even if you're fresh out of school. Here's what we have discovered doing a survey of hiring. University A has one archive, one archivist. The hiring person was told by the library director, we need to hire an archivist. They go, okay. And they go, all right, I'm going to write a job description. Then they Google another institution that's about their same size and go, what are they looking for in their archivist? And then they copy and paste it to theirs, rework it, and repost it. They say 3 to 5 years of experience because that's what everybody says. In the same way, they say you need to be able to lift 40 pounds, which is a whole nother conversation we don't have time for. So apply for jobs that you feel underqualified for, because sometimes they don't actually need 3 to 5 years of experience. They're just saying that. And sometimes they will say, okay, you don't have exactly the experience you want. We'll bring you in a slightly lower pay rate that you will be able to work up to once you get the commensurate experience. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, that was great information. Kind of related to that, when a job posting has a range, how likely are companies going to pay on the top of that range? Granted, skills and experience align with it.
Unfortunately, there's no way to know. It depends on the organization. So larger organizations like institutions that have been around for a few hundred years, Coca-Cola, the Ohio State University, Purdue, places like that, they have infrastructure in place through the organization that dictates how they do that. Smaller organizations, it's much more negotiable. There's no way to know, unfortunately. Sometimes they put a pay scale and then they offer you an amount of money that I once I once had someone tell me that they were offered $17 an hour. The job said they needed 5 years of experience. So yeah, sometimes it's a bait and switch. And when you get to that point, try to negotiate. So ideally, you want 20% more than the job you're making now. The reality is, if they say this is all we can pay you, then, if you can take it, cool. If not, you have to say no. Working a second job to make ends meet should not be how this works. If they don't offer you enough money, don't take the job.
And when you're asking for a pay range, is asking for the middle selling yourself short? Or especially when this is in the application specifically, or does it show you know your value when you're new to the field?
Know your value when you're new to the field. The worst thing you can do is sell yourself short. And when I took that job at $28,000 because I didn't know to negotiate, to try to ask for more, it set me up to build so slowly. Because each job you get, again, should be about 20% more than you make now. If you start at criminal wages, it's going to take you forever to get to the point. And according to a study a few years ago, you need $72,000 a year in order to live comfortably. That's what we should be shooting for. I wish it could happen. Look at how much it costs to live in the city you're in. If there, I, I had a job offer me $58,000 a year to live in DC. $58,000 a year to live in Ohio. That's doable. $58,000 a year, DC is not. So the pay rate needs to be commiserate to what you can afford. And be realistic. Try to make a budget. Like I said, ask for about 20% more than you're making now. If they give you a range, the top 2/3 percent. Do not ever say, I'm taking the lower 2/3. So if they say let's say they say between 60 and $68,000 a year, you say you want 65.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to kind of mash two together here on more related to the resume CV. So, do you have a template or like a more specific look you have recommending when you're building a CV? And then, how do you write a CV if you don't yet have job experience?
Okay, so repeat the first part again.
The first one was, is there like a template you would
Okay.
recommend for building a CV?
Don't use a template. Someone once sent me one that they built in Canva. It was ghoulish overkill. All right, this is gonna date me. They went straight to plaid. Um, go basic. Build it in Word. You can use Google. You can do whatever Word document you do. Keep it simple. Use bold to highlight things. Use italics. Don't use the don't even use that thing where it says body and then heading. Don't even use that, because when you go to update things, it makes things so difficult to do that you have to start over. Don't use columns. Columns Columns are evil, especially in a CV, because if you go to change something, it wrecks the whole document. So just build it left to right, top to bottom. Don't make it fancy. Don't use weird formats. Sans serif is the easiest one to read, especially if you have vision issues. Um, don't make the font smaller than 11 point. Again, you're going to convert it to a PDF, and the idea is someone can make it bigger if they need you, but don't make it smaller than 11 point font. And when you're building your CV and you don't have a lot of experience, what we sort of want to focus on is your skills. So this is where you talk about all the different things that you are familiar with, all the different things that you are, like we said at the beginning, that you are an expert at. And we pull these skills from our previous lives. So, don't put in a personal statement at the top. I don't know why these have come back into fashion. It just eats up space and it makes it look like you're making it bigger than it actually is. It's a waste of space. Be honest, put down your education, put down the courses that you've taken in school, especially courses that you really enjoyed. If you wrote a paper for a course that did really well, put that down and then link to it. Um, there are a lot of different things that we know that we can sort of put on our CVs. And again, as you build your CV, it gets bigger and bigger. You're going to start out with 2 pages now. It's going to be 12 pages after just a couple of years. Look for writing opportunities. So I'm going to be honest with you. There's not enough writing happening in our profession, and that's bad. Um, Without new scholarship, we don't evolve as a profession. Writing can be difficult, but there are a lot of opportunities out there to do writing at a variety of levels. So American Archivist, peer-reviewed journals, it usually requires a bigger thing. It requires research. It's a lot of work. But blogs, newsletters, those are all a really easy way to start talking about archival issues and your perspective on them, regardless of where you are in the field. And students have a really, really important perspective. Ooh, someone just, yes, Emma Sish pointed out, you can write for the Snap blog. It's great. I wrote for the Snap blog a billion years ago, and it was one of the first things I did as a writing project. And starting small with blogs, you put those all on there as professional writing. Um, Helps get your name out there, helps you sort of evolve your voice, allows people to say, okay, I don't have the experience, but look at what I have said about this topic. I clearly understand it in a fundamental way that will ensure that I know how to do this job.
That's great. And if you're applying for a job that is an email submission only and doesn't specify wanting a cover letter, should you email them your cover letter, attach one, or just send your resume as part of the application?
Do what they tell you. One of the tricks that came out of the greatest recession and then COVID was, if you don't do exactly what they say, they boot you out. It's a way to thin the herd, because I'm going to tell you, in 2009, someone told me that they opened a position, 1,000 people applied in less than 24 hours, and then they closed it. Again, it's not like that now, but even if it's only 50 or 100 people or 25 people, that's still a lot of applications to look through. So they're going to do whatever they can to get rid of people, which is grossly unfair and inhumane and a stupid way to do it, but it is what it is. If they tell you submit only a resume up to 2 pages, cherry pick out of your cover letter, make it a 2 page thing. If they say don't submit a cover letter, you take the information you would have put in the cover letter, you put it in the email, you send it that way. If they say attach it, you attach it. If they say embed it in the email, do whatever they tell you. And if it is a computerized system, do not skip anything. If it If you don't have an answer for the blank, put none or NA. Don't leave it blank. I know that US jobs, it would boot you out of the system if you left something blank. It would automatically cut you out of the running. Again, it's just different ways that they use to sort of get to the right person. It's not the best way to do it, but it is. So do what they tell you, and don't deviate from that.
In the chat, we also had asked, what about when a CV isn't requested?
If they don't say CV or resume, always send your CV. You always want to send the most complete picture of yourself. You always want to highlight the best things about you. So the more information they have, the better.
And then for folks who are doing more of like a mid-career change, how much should they merge their old and new CV? If they only have a one-page resume of their new work, should they expand it even if there's filler? What would you recommend?
Don't use filler. There's no point in it. It just comes across as fluff. Um, if your CV is only 1 or 2 pages, that's fine. It is what it is. If you're doing mid-career change, if it is related to archives, you can put it on there. If it's not related to archives, you can't. So, like I said, I couldn't put my restaurant experience, I couldn't put the warehouse experience because it just wasn't archival experience. There is a gray area. Marketing stuff, grant writing. Always put grant writing on there if you know how to do grant writing. In fact, I should have mentioned that earlier. If you know how to do grant writing, that's a skill you should put on there as well. We all need to know how to write grants. Um, if it's a allied profession, if you were a librarian, you could put all that stuff on there. If you were a professor, you could put all that stuff on there. If you're an accountant, only if you could sort of figure out a way to tie it to archives. This is really where a career counselor will really come in handy. Because what we do as part of that career counsel work is work with you on your CV. So what I'll do is I'll have you send your whatever you've got ahead of time, and then we sort of take a look and figure out how we can mesh it together. Because each each person is each individual is unique, and each one requires a unique approach.
Okay, I have one more quick question for you. We have a few we haven't gotten to, but I can answer those in a follow-up email to this. But how should we approach the inclusion of AI skills in job descriptions? Should we avoid those positions or should we embrace AI, and how?
Okay, so this is again dating myself. In the 80s, when synthesizers became a thing, every band in the whole world had synthesizers, whether it matched or not. It was an annoying thing. We all got so tired of synthesizers almost instantly. And about 3 years later, it sort of settled down and they, found their place amongst all the other musical instruments. AI is the same sort of thing. Right now, it's new and we're trying to figure out what's happening with it. It's going to settle down and find its place. I have figured out, you know what it's great for? When I get a sister who comes to me and says, I really love this photo of a plant. Can you help me get rid of the people in the background? And I go, I have 50 other things I need to do today, but you know what I can do? I can throw it into Chat GPT and go remove everything in the background of this photo. And it chugs out a picture of the plant. She prints it out and puts it on the door of her room and is ecstatically happy. It took me the 10 seconds it takes to upload it and to type the thing in and then to let it go, and it did its thing while I did actual work. It's great for that. I know libraries are using it to help them sort of build. It has just escaped my mind. Sorry, all my librarian friends are very mad at me right now, but they're using it to help them sort of build metadata and things like that. It's it's an interesting tool. Um, I don't think it's going to take over our jobs. I don't think it's going to take over the landscape in the same way that email didn't mean that we went to a paperless office. After that one, we actually used twice as much paper as we did before. Yeah, so don't shy away from it. If you have some skills with AI, go ahead and put them in the skills section. I know how to use AI to do some Photoshop type stuff because you know what? Chappy GPT comes with my Google account. Photoshop is like a bazillion dollars, and Adobe is, I saw how much we pay for it as an organization accidentally. It is a staggering amount of money. If you can use AI for something like that, that allows you to bypass having to pay a lot of money, cool. Um, you got to tell people when you're using AI. If the job is saying you're going to use AI to create finding aids and to do all this archival work, maybe don't apply for that one. Look into a little bit more. Look for those red flags.
That's great. Thank you so much, Michelle. We're going to wrap up questions there, but again, I will send out answers for the ones that didn't get answered, especially on the SAA SNAP side.
Um,
Um,
if there are questions that you guys can't answer, please let me know, and I will be happy to answer them, and then we could put it on the blog or something.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you to the SAA Career Development Subcommittee for connecting us with Michelle. They do great work over there. So highly would recommend if you are in SAA, do some work with them. They are a great asset. And for those of you who are interested more in professional development, SNAP is going to be hosting a panel on SA certificate programs in January for anyone who's curious about those. So you can keep an eye out for those on our SA lists through our blog or through our socials, which Jason will send in the chat. But thank you so much for everyone for coming out today. Have a great 1st of November.
And reach out anytime.